This doesn't have that. This allows a new process that takes into account the potential second unit, and then what mitigations may be necessary that are applicable and reasonable to the impact that it would occur from that one additional unit. I'm inclined to go with that second process because this was developed without that benefit, and have the Planning Commission take a look and say, well, it's nominal impact, not a big problem, or we may need a little bit more here. We have to be reasonable. We can't put anything on there that's unreasonable given the portion of that impact. But I also understand that, to me, and this is why I would, if this was a deed restriction, I would be taking it off, because it's one unit on a huge parcel there's only 5 units that are served on that road. Granted, it's not the best road, it's not the worst road in this county either. So from an incremental standpoint, there's really not much there, but from a process standpoint, this was done under one understanding, and if going through another process to look at it on its own, I mean, that's my inclination at this point, but I'm still quite undecided.
If the board goes down that path, I would have a suggestion that what you could do would be to delete condition number 18 of the division and just say a notation shall be placed on the parcel map that development of the property is subject to use permit conditions found on file with Department of Planning and Building Services, and then put the condition that says no second unit clearly under the use permit conditions. So what would have to be, clearly the only thing that have to be changed would be just come in and modify the use permit. That would make it cleaner, I think, for the applicant and probably the county, if that's going to happen in the future.
Okay. That's a good suggestion. Appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, the applicant now has 5 minutes to sum up, if you have any additional comments.
I believe I've pretty much covered everything from the first time I was up here. And like I said, I'm not up here for a position on that. The only thing I'm up here for today is on the position of what we have with the, what we have set up now for the process to get this subdivision complete. Thanks again.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Okay, is there any public members that want to speak to this item? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and bring this back before the Board of Supervisors for comments, questions, motions. So to the board, Supervisor Delbert.
Thank you, Mr. Lynch. The language you just proposed, which I'm
writing it down.
that's what I assumed you were doing. I won't interrupt you except to ask one quick question. That would be, that same condition would be applicable to both parcels?
Yes?
Okay, thank you. Then I will let you finish writing down what you said, then I'm going to ask you what it was.
While we're doing that, Supervisor Pinches.
Well, just as a general comment, and this is an example I've used many times here, the Spy Rock Road in my district has over 700 parcels. That's a minimum potential of 1,400 residences up there. And on just about all the parcels now, there's at least one resident. So, and it has a section of grade in it that exceeds 12%. And it's got sections of the road that only has a 14-foot wide road bed. And even with that usage, there's even a school up that road. There hasn't, other than the dusty road conditions, people seem to be pretty well satisfied with that road. So I don't think, is a less than, what is it, 20-foot road bed, is that substandard? I guess by our new standards we're looking at, yes, it is substandard. But as far as usability and safety wise, they're throughout this county. Not only throughout this county, they're throughout the whole North Coast. So for 5 or 10 or 15 people to use a substandard road, it really doesn't, concern me that much when you put it in comparison of what heavy usage roads we do have in this county.
Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Questions for probably both DOT and for planning. How does this issue before us in this decision-making process have to do with the issue that was just referred by the board to committee, which is that the county needs to be paying attention to the road standards issue? So obviously there's a connection here. So I want to know what the department thinks in terms of this case and how it applies to that discussion. And if we don't start approaching this in an incremental fashion vis-a-vis when we have cases that come before us that deal with road issues, how else are we going to be dealing with the issue?
I guess I'd respond in that I think in this particular, the Vista del Lago area, which consists of, I don't know how many acres, quite a number of CC-created parcels, that's what we've tried to achieve, some kind of uniform program on development out there, and finally got to the point the Planning Commission said, we can't deal with this anymore because the roads were not coming up to standards, and no one wants to use a moratorium word, and that's not what we're suggesting, but through the development of road improvement standards that would be consistently applied, and I understand there's going to be a deviation here and there, but more or less consistently applied, I think it gives both the developer and the public an idea of what they're going to have to expect, and it gives us clearer direction on how we should proceed in dealing with applications. There's always going to be an argument over something, but I think that will help people think on both sides. Vista del Lago is a problematic area because it's, as a number of areas in the county have been broken up by CCs, and you're always going to deal with substandard roads that are maintained by kind of a haphazard road association, if there is one at all. And a lot of problems we see in the planning process dealing with other entitlements like use permits that are off of private roads, the winery in Anderson Valley, or meditation retreats that have been proposed in, I think, all of your districts at one point in time or the other, have always been problematic when they're up these private roads. And having some kind of consistent road standards, instead of dealing with them, case by case, it will be a lot easier for all of us, I think.
But really, since they are private roads, they're ultimately going to have to be dealt with from the property owner's standpoint or the applicant's standpoint, because certainly county doesn't have the resources to really take care of the roads that we already have in our purview. At least I don't think so adequately. I mean, we're infused with some new resources, but I don't think that they're to the degree that we'd like them to be. So can you address Mr. Rogers' comments that he wants to make sure that his process goes forward, and how does this decision-making here play into the concerns that he has as the applicant?
I think he would like to see, I'm not trying to speak for him, but he would like to see this division resolved today so the two parties can separate their interests, and then whatever one of them wants to do incrementally in the future, they would be entitled to do so under a separate action. I think he just wants to get this thing done today so they can separate their interests.
Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Delbar.
Well, thank you. That's kind of where I'm trying to head with revised language that would let this process go forward from today, yet give both parties an easier, cleaner opportunity to come back later and revise that. So, Mr. Lynch, the language you threw out a few minutes ago seemed to make sense. What do you have?
And I can,
You
for
can
the clerk's
repeat that.
sake, I'll email this to you later. It would be changing the language on condition number 18 of the subdivision to state future development of property created by this division shall be subject to use permits found, to conditions found on a use permit number UM 3-1990